Welcome to CT Expert Insights. When your business needs people it can trust, you can count on us. We dedicate ourselves to getting to know your needs and finding solutions to meet them. You'll have a team of experts backing you up.
Hi, I'm Greg Columbus. Our guest this week on Expert Insights is Jesse Newton. He's an expert advisor at Northwestern University. He is also the founder and CEO of Simplify Work. And he's the author of the brand new book, Simplify Work, Crushing Complexity to Liberate Innovation, Productivity, and Engagement. And Jesse, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for having me.
How'd you become passionate about this topic of simplifying work? How big of a problem is it?
I've been consulting with over 100 companies around the world, and just reflecting on the experience across those organizations, it was very apparent that there's just a massive opportunity to remove a lot of distracting things within an organization that pull people from their highest priorities. And so it's a huge opportunity, and one that is really energizing to be able to expose it and to be able to help companies through the opportunity to discover those things that are most important and remove those shackles that are holding them back.
Let's dive in to get a little more specific, because you talk in the book, and your company's all about this. You're passionate about helping companies remove the things that get in the way of their people doing their best and most important work. You just mentioned it. What are some examples of those? What are things that businesses routinely have to deal with that they shouldn't be?
Well, essentially, as organizations grow up, they add more structures and processes, rules, metrics, committees, scorecards, reports. I could go on. And basically, where it leaves the individual employee is in this position within a labyrinth. They have to navigate, who's responsible for what, and constantly having to complete these reports or trying to understand various communication channels. How do I connect with this particular group? And if they get left in this state where they become very reactive, and they lose sight of those things that are most important. So it's harder to become, much more proactive around how you organize your day and where you allocate your time and energy, because you're left to react and respond to the plethora of demands on your time. And so from an organizational perspective, it's not serving to really liberate the best thinking and innovation and collaboration and engagement. A lot of people are becoming disengaged within organizations, and a big driver of that is that organizational complexity that has crept into many organizations over a long time frame.
All right, so you crush complexity by simplifying work. How do you do it?
It depends on which part of the organization you're looking at. So whether it's at the top, whether it's strategic or whether it's structural, or whether you're looking at systems or process. But you can distill it into three broad steps. The first is getting clear on what is truly important. Taking a big step back and thinking about, okay, what are the true strategic priorities? What are the things that are going to deliver the greatest impact on performance? Without understanding and aligning on what is truly most important, it's impossible to prioritize. It's impossible to say no to things. And so inevitably you end up in a very reactive mode, just completing instructions that are given to you. The second piece is understand how work actually gets done today. So what are people spending their time on? What are the activities? How much time is spent on each activity? And then once you've got that inventory of, what is it that encompasses a day in the life of a team member, an X group, whatever, you can then assess each of those activities and think about which is truly a priority, which versus those things that are low value, that are just soaking up people's time and energy and pulling them from the highest priority, strategic activities. And so once you've got that clarity, you can obviously, step number 3, remove or redesign all those things that are pulling people from their most important work. So, it could be removing a chunk of administrative tasks. It could be booking travel or processing expenses. It could be some certain activities within a budgeting process. It could be some compliance activities. So it's identifying those things that could be removed or you're redesigning it so it becomes more automated or less cumbersome. And an example is, performance management. So for decades, the whole process of annual performance management was pretty clunky, and people dreaded the process of having to, write up the reviews and rate people and sit down. And, the focus became more on how do we get through this process versus how do we get the value from the process, which, there's a huge amount of potential for a lot of value to be created through an effective performance management process. But people were getting lost in just the cumbersome nature of the process. And so a couple of years ago, a few experts came up with a few different perspectives on performance management that tested some of the assumptions around the effectiveness of traditional performance management, which led to organizations questioning whether their process was the right one. And many organizations since have transformed their performance management system to strip out the cumbersome nature, to make it much more targeted, focus on those parts of the process that are most valuable, like rich coaching conversations between managers and employees, for instance. And so that's just one example of how you can follow that three-step process, get clear on the priorities, understand the reality of work today, and then remove or redesign the things that are getting in the way of those priorities.
Excellent advice. Some folks might be wondering, Jesse, these cumbersome tasks, oftentimes they still need to be done, but they can be done more efficiently, or perhaps they should be moved to someone else in certain cases. So how do you make sure that the work that needs to get done, even if it's cumbersome, still gets done while still freeing people up to do what they do best?
Yeah, one good strategy from an individual perspective is getting a lot better at planning. From an individual perspective, understand, annually, quarterly, monthly, weekly, how do you cascade the top annual goals into quarterly plans? How do you then translate quarterly plans into weekly plans and organize your week around those top priorities? So if you know that you're most productive in the morning, you do your best thinking and innovating between the hours of 9 and 11, protect that time to focus on those highest priority activities. Allocate a big chunk of the week, or whatever chunk is appropriate, to get through the administrative tasks in a time frame that isn't, your most productive time. So if it's in the afternoon or a Thursday afternoon, or take a proactive view of your weekly calendar and time-bound specific activities. And that even includes checking email. So interruptions and distractions are the driver of individual complexity. So carve out time in the day to check and to respond to emails. And it could be before lunch or after lunch or, in the morning. And it could be 3 times a day, 4 times a day. But what you're doing is you're limiting the interruptions and distractions that can break your deep focus and concentration, can inhibit your best work. And so that's one sort of finite, practical way of, from an individual perspective, proactively, taking charge of your week and your time and your energy and organizing it so that you're more effective.
I really like the focus on time, because that's the commodity that everyone has the exact same amount of. Some businesses might have more resources than others. Some have more people, but everyone's got the same amount of time. And so being able to prioritize that and organize it effectively is definitely a key. As we get ready to close here, Jesse, I just want to have you share a story or two. It might be your own story, I don't know, or clients you've dealt with, of the difference this makes when you simplify the work, when you deal with these cumbersome tasks in an effective way, organize your time in a better way. How have you seen that liberate innovation, productivity, and engagement?
Well, it's massively energizing when you see employees see the opportunity. So I facilitate numerous workshops and I help different groups, whether it's functional leadership or leadership of an organization, just look at their organization or their function team through the lens of simplification, and it's just hugely energizing to see the reaction in the people when you identify all of those things that are pulling people from their work. And so, for instance, when you capture that list of items, people are often unaware of how many things their people are having to manage, and the competing requests and pressures on their time is often unknown and unclear. And so shining the spotlight on all of those things that people are having to manage and is very eye-opening for organizations. And then, once they have the ability to pull things away, the increased energy and excitement and the passion and the enthusiasm returns to the job, because all of a sudden people are able to come into work and do what they were hired for, instead of having to, manage low-value work or being pulled in multiple directions and feeling like they aren't in control of their performance.
Well, liberating folks to be as productive as possible is not only good for their own attitude towards work, as you mentioned before, when they have all these other tasks that distract them from those things, it really hurts morale and the overall performance of the business. And so making life more exciting and more focused for the individual makes it better for the team, which makes it better for the business. And there's a whole lot more in this book that I wish we had time to get to. But, Jesse, we've hopefully scratched the itch enough so people want to pick up a copy of it. It's called Simplify Work, Crushing Complexity to Liberate Innovation, Productivity, and Engagement. You can get it now at Amazon.com and elsewhere. It officially goes on sale February 5th. And, sir, thank you so much for your time today. We greatly appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Jesse Newton is an expert advisor at Northwestern University. He is the founder and CEO of Simplify Work. That's also the title of the book. Again, Simplify Work, Crushing Complexity to Liberate Innovation, Productivity, and Engagement. I'm Greg Columbus, and for more information on this topic, please call CT at 844-787-7782.
With 125 years of experience, CT is here to help you at every stage of the business life cycle.